Hey Matthew,
Hi.
it's Hunter from Jansport. How are you doing?
Hey, Hunter. I'm so good. It's so lovely talking to the sign with your voice.
Yes, it's so good to talk to you too. I've been looking forward to this so much. So yeah, let's get started.
Okay.
You're here because you're our second guest on Lighten the Load Live. For those of you tuning in who don't know, Lighten the Load is this new campaign from Jansport that's all about connecting people with real mental health tools in a way that is contextual to our real lives, which is super important right now. um, yeah, so like I said, you're our second guest. If you want to introduce yourself
Look
and
at
tell
me.
everyone, I know you look so good in that picture too. You look good in real life, but yeah, if you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Matt Dempsey. I'm a psychotherapist. I kind of mainly specialize working with the queer community, even kind of more specifically with gay men, but honestly, just kind of anybody that like feels marginalized, feels different, kind of struggles to maybe feel better about themselves or feel safer in the world. So that's me.
Yeah, and guys, if you, after you watch this, go to his Instagram, he has amazing like tips and advice and perspective for all kinds of things. It's awesome. So basically how this is going to work, Matthew, is we are going to go through some of these slides on this handy dandy iPad I have. And it's going to be like a lot of questions and kind of topics that we've seen people talking about online.
Hmm.
And you're going to give us your expertise and all of the knowledge that you have that we can soak up. And then we're going to say goodbye to you and bring on a couple of our friends who are not therapists to kind of share their reactions and how they apply that to their life. So yeah, today's topic is compassion fatigue. Um, I know that like this can mean a, kind of some different things out there, but for today, we're going to be talking about how you can stay informed with what's happening in the world, and you can stay passionate about it without feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a great topic because it's obviously one that especially I feel like a lot of people who are going to be tuning into this are probably like more of the like feelers and the helpers of the world, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a great topic just in a general sense, and especially right now, like especially right now, this is a great time to check in to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Like, even kind of me thinking for myself about everything that's been going on, it's been a crazy time. There's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been kind of for me like almost a feeling of this is my time to shine. Like this is what I do. I'm a professional
Yes.
caregiver. I'm gonna do this, but also really, really, really making sure that I'm doing what I need to do to take care of myself during all of it. So
Yeah, we've been talking a lot on our side about just taking care of yourself first. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good advice on that.
yeah.
Let's get into the first kind of topic here.
Okay.
The first kind of prompt we have is how can I stay informed without feeling overwhelmed? Like, what are your general thoughts on the concept here?
Okay, well, this one's hard. I actually threw up a little bit of a poll on my social media story, on Instagram story
Yes, I
earlier
love
today.
that.
Yeah, asking people, like, what do you tend to do when you feel overwhelmed? Do you dig your heels in and try to overperform, or do you want to crawl under a rock? And I think the last time I checked, it was somewhere like, I don't know, 65% of people wanting to crawl under rocks.
I think I
So
answered crawl under rock, to be honest.
that was my go-to, so I get it. So anyway, listen, this is an intense time. It is very overwhelming. It's incredibly enticing to want to just kind of avoid everything. So let's not do that. We want to stay informed, but we also kind of want to make sure that we've got a few tips so that we're not kind of overwhelmingly doing it. So, okay, first tip that I would say is don't start or end your day consuming news. Don't do it. It's not good because here's why. At the start of the day, if you're, just kind of grabbing your phone, reaching, kind of spinning through all the different news that exists, all you're doing is perpetuating this kind of, this neurotic and anxious thinking that everything's doom and gloom. There's, so much that we don't know and it's going to be terrible. And it's not a good way to start. It's not the note that we want to start on the day. So what I do, and this is something that I started a while ago, I reach for my AirPods when I first wake up, I reach for my AirPods, I pop them in, I do a little 10-minute guided meditation. That really kind of helps mellow me out. I get up, I have coffee, I write in my gratitude journal. I just take a minute to wake up first, and then I'll maybe start checking in on some stuff, social media, emails, some news. So give yourself a little time to start the day in that way. And then also on the flip side, don't end the day with that. Because if you're ending the day spinning through all the news, it's not going to be cute, because then you're going to have a lot of anxious dreams, and it's not going to be fun. So kind of find a time more in the middle of the day where you get to check out some of what the news has to offer.
I love that.
Yeah. So great. So a second tip that I would say is also really make sure that you're being very conscious and intentional with the amount of time that you're actually going to be, investing into news. So like, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is that feels like the right amount of time for you, like kind of think about it ahead of time and plan that for yourself so you can gauge that. It's never going to be perfect, but at least you've got some kind of gauge throughout the day so that you don't start kind of spinning too much in the news, or, conversely, you're not just trying to stay away from the news altogether. Give yourself a certain amount of time that you do want to check in, but also kind of give yourself some parameters so that you can follow that. That's been helpful for me too. So kind of, give yourself a little bit of that guidance. And then also, I think this is a really, really important one, is to just make sure that you are very consciously choosing what news sources that you're getting your stuff from. It doesn't mean that it has to be a whole echo chamber of just kind of like one perspective, right? Like, get a few different sources, but also just make sure that there are a few different sources, maybe like 2, 3, 4, and then just try to cap it off. Because if we have so many different voices coming at us, and also throughout the day, through social media, scrolling through our feeds, everybody sharing so many different things, it can just feel like a lot. And it's hard to also kind of tease out what actually can be helpful for us. So we just don't want to get bombarded. So just consciously kind of, make sure that you're choosing a few, and that's kind of it. So don't start and end your day with news. Don't do it. Also just make sure that you're, kind of, again, choosing a certain amount of time that you're going to check in on that news. And then, what was the last thing? Oh yeah, choose only a few news. I've got my notes right here.
That is all like so real though, because I have noticed like just scrolling through Twitter first thing in the morning and seeing everything before I even get out of bed is like overwhelming within the first 5 minutes of my day.
Yes. Yeah. Of everything I just said, if there's one thing you take away, don't start your day with news. Get off Twitter.
Or end it, because I think everyone knows there's been like crazy COVID dreams these days, which we might talk about one day in the future.
Yeah, no, I actually try to, I end my day, if anything, I kind of end it just like spinning through a few just kind of like fun and lighthearted YouTube videos. At least that's just kind of entertaining. But I've also been reading Alicia Keys' new book. This is like not a promotion at all, but it's so good. Even if you don't love her music, she has such a solid, positive perspective. So
just like ending the day with something, like you said, positive, like something uplifting is amazing. And I love that it's starting to treat news as something that we can set boundaries with.
What are those?
I know, right? Like it's just so crazy important to think about. And it kind of leads into the next question I wanted to ask you is, and I saw some people talking about this in the comments and stuff, is how do I tell my friends and family that I need a break from talking about all of this? I feel like it's the first thing you talk about when you get on FaceTime with someone is like, oh, this sucks. Did you see what happened? Did you see what they said on the news or whatever? Yeah. And how do I tell people, like, can I just take a breather and can we not right now?
Oh, it's really easy. Just block them. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to have a converation.
Sorry. Goodbye. No. I mean, they'd appreciate.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's honestly as equally simple and complex as just telling them, right? Because it's simple, because just tell people what you need, right? Like, you know what? Like, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about other things. Like, what else is going on in life? Whatever. Kind of like pivot a little bit, or just say, I'm kind of feeling like this is a drag. Like, maybe let's not talk about this right now. Just say it plainly. But a thing that can be really challenging to do that is if we are struggling to kind of speak on behalf of our needs, then it can feel uncomfortable to say that. Like, who the hell are we? People need to vent. We should let them if they want to. But we have to make sure that we're meeting our own baseline needs first. That's really important. So we do need to set those boundaries, Hunter, that you were talking about. We need to set those boundaries and just do it in a gentle way. You know, and if people just keep chiming in and keep wanting to go there, and just say like, you know, I think I'm gonna get off the phone now. Let's talk another time. I gotta go. Right? Get out of there.
Yeah, you have to be comfortable, like drawing a line, I guess, somewhere, and speaking to your own needs first, like you said. What are your kind of tips or your advice on like just kind of distracting yourself? I talked to Whitney a little bit last week about like positive distractions.
Yes.
But sometimes it feels like this stuff is still drilling into my brain, even if I haven't looked at my news feed all day.
Right. So positive distractions. So some of the things that you're going to kind of want to do is, first of all, I would say kind of like, let's reframe that. I don't necessarily know it's, like necessarily a distraction in a bad way, like we're avoiding it, but just making sure that we're tempering in. That's kind of why I would go back to what I was saying before. If we have allotted a certain amount of time for the news that we're going to be checking in on and the kind of conversations that we can have, then great, then we're doing that. And so that we know that that ground is covered. And then otherwise, we also have to make sure that we're getting still within ourselves. And that means, you know, just watching, I don't know, YouTube videos that are entertaining, or just having lighthearted conversation with friends, or even doing some of the more meaningful kind of introspective work, like read a book that you love, or, you know, write in your gratitude journal, or write down some affirmations, or do a guided meditation. This is kind of like, that's kind of my jam, right? So, but being able to find that time, we have to really make sure that we're carving out that kind of self-care, because then otherwise the other stuff is going to be meaningless. The other ways that we can contribute or that we can show up, it's not going to be that effective.
Yeah, I love that. The thing about the boundaries is like almost giving yourself permission to stop thinking about it, to say, I'm gonna stay informed for 2 hours or whatever your time is, and then I'm gonna allow myself to stop and like kind of purposefully let myself do it or not do it.
Yes, do it or not do it. But like make sure you know what you need first, and then go from there. Again, that can be a really challenging thing, especially for a lot of people who tend to be the kind of helpers of the world. Like we kind of, you know, there's so many of us, and I can relate, I'm a professional helper. So there's so many of us who kind of grew up in maybe our lives and some of our own personal experiences where we maybe we learned that our value came from catering to people, from being there for people, from helping other people. And while it's a great thing for us to be able to open our hearts and love, that's not what makes us valuable. That's not what gives us a seat at the table. So we have to make sure that we're not carrying that kind of intention through in how we're helping now as adults. So we're not doing it to just try to prove something or to try to fix things or try to be the answer for other people. We have to make sure that we're checking with ourselves first, that our cup is full, so that then any overflow afterwards can actually be helpful for others.
Yes, we love that. Okay, we have another topic here that's kind of the other side of the coin.
Yes.
What if I am already kind of checked out? Like, what if I'm so numb from this that I'm having a hard time even focusing or caring what's going on at all?
Oh my God. I mean, like, I relate. Like,
I'm just under the rock, okay? Someone save me.
I'm going back under the rock. We're good. 15 more minutes. I'm out of here. I don't want to think about this anymore. All right. Number one, I'm going to sound like such a cliche therapist, but like, your feelings are normal. This is okay. Let's start there, right? Like, let's just make sure that we're validating the emotional experience of this. This is a crazy time. It's going to feel overwhelming. Just know that it's okay and that everybody's feeling this to some extent. It might get expressed differently, but at the core, we're all kind of losing it a little bit.
Yes. Oh my God.
So that's the first thing, is to just kind of know that. You know, we can kind of get overwhelmed, particularly when we think that we have to have the answers and have the solution, right? It's kind of like, okay, here's this problem before me. There has to be something that I can do. What's my part? You know, am I doing something for the world or for the country or for my family or friends? Like, what is it that I need to do? And we think that we have to have the answers, you know, and we can easily feel like I have to have a solution to this. And it's just kind of not a fair expectation for us to have, you know? So we need to also kind of like cut ourselves some slack. We're not going to have the answers. Nobody does. So kind of like take a breath from there. And then from there, we also just kind of want to check back in, like get still, right? Like take a breath, check in with ourselves, and then also just kind of like think, okay, what do I need right now? I know this kind of sounds like it's almost, you know, kind of self-serving, but this is the process. The best way that I can ever help is to just kind of get still, think about what I need first, and then be able to take, you know, kind of one step from there. How, like, you know, kind of the other week I was just thinking, kind of going back to like a productivity as my value kind of concept. I was thinking that, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm putting so much pressure on all these different projects that I've got going on or whatever. And I need to not do that. And I need to not weigh my value from that stuff. And so I thought, okay, what I need right in this moment is to know that that's not my worth. I need to express that. So I got vulnerable about it. I made a little video, just kind of talked about how I was doing that. And I then also kind of shared my kind of more positive perspective on how I can remind myself that that's not what makes me worthy. So it was first getting still and checking in with myself, what do I need right now? And if you do that, then you're tapping into something more real. You're not trying to like spin yourself crazy thinking what everybody else needs from you, because you're never going to have those answers. There's going to be a million different things, but you're checking in with the authentic need that you have first. And that taps into more of the zeitgeist. Like that taps into more of kind of a real authentic need. And then you get to speak to it. You get to just take one small step. You're not saving the world. You're just taking one small step like I did. I was vulnerable about it. I got to model what that kind of raw emotion looked like, and also some positive perspective. And in that one small way, I took one small step and I offered something, but it was something that was authentic. It was something that came from my heart. And so that's what I was able to do first. And then from there, then I can think about like, okay, maybe what's like the next thing that I can do? But I'm not trying to save the world. I'm just trying to be the most real and kind of authentic version of myself, knowing that that's going to be the most impactful and meaningful thing for others.
So two things I pulled out of that is one, just like being fair to yourself, like having that you said fair expectations, like not, like you said, like setting the bar way too high or putting way too much pressure on yourself, just allowing yourself to do what's within your means. And then the second thing is like, it's amazing how much just sharing what you're going through can actually help others, and like just speaking to your experience. And you can connect with others over that, and that actually helps so much, like just putting it out there, even if it's like I don't know what to do, but more telling people that
exactly, because we don't know, right? Like more than anything, what we need more than anything is not advice, we need experience. So be brave enough, be courageous enough to open your heart, to be vulnerable, to share that. It normalizes your feelings first. It then also gives other people permission and license to feel whatever it is that they're feeling. And that helps us kind of collectively take a breath and get to a calmer place where we then can think about what's that next small step we can take.
Yeah. And one thing, again, we kind of touched on last week, but I'm interested to hear your perspective, is what if I notice like someone else has kind of crawled under that rock and they are, not bringing the energy that they usually have? Like, how can I check on that person or bring them any kind of like positivity, or what's your take on helping or reaching out to someone who is really taking this extra hard?
Totally. Okay. First things first, kind of going back to self-care, you have to be honest with yourself. Do you have the energy? Do you have that care available to give to somebody else? Because if you don't open that door. Maybe you can kind of like let somebody else know, or a mutual friend or whoever, but don't be that then, because you don't have it to give. So if you're checking in and you think, you know what, I'm feeling like kind of okay today, and and I'm kind of concerned about whoever it is, then just reach out. And all you have to do is just say like, hey, how you doing? How's it going? It can be really intimidating because then, people might start opening up and sharing things, and we instinctively want to take people's pain away. We instinctively want to give them the answers. We aren't guaranteed that we're going to have answers, ones that are going to work for them, or that we can take their pain away. And so once we kind of let some of that stuff go, let those expectations, our own self-imposed expectations to be like a good caretaker, let that go and just be there for somebody, it helps ease the space so much more for a person to just get to vent and talk about things. And you can even ask them like, hey, what do you need? Do you just need to vent? Do you want some advice? Do you want some opinions on things? People will let you know. You don't have to,
Yeah.
you don't have to figure that out.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even really need advice because you
No.
already like know what you're gonna do, but you just need
Totally.
to vocalize it out loud.
Yeah. Like I most of the time don't want advice. If I'm
Yeah,
just
me either.
venting, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I'm just like, let me be sad.
Yes. Like we're not gonna fix this problem today, but we are gonna complain about it, and that's
Yes,
okay. Yeah.
exactly.
And that's another like you don't have to be a superhero moment.
No, totally.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of, you don't have to be a superhero.
Yes.
I see so many people saying, I'm frustrated that I can't help more. I don't know what to do, or I see so much pain out there. And I want to contribute, but sometimes it's just not within your means or your time.
Yep. Oh, this is my turn. Okay, now I go. Okay.
Yes. Well, like, that pressure, especially this generation, like as a young
Yeah.
person, I do feel some pressure to be an activist, to be active in the conversation, to stand up for what I believe in. And that's so much pressure sometimes.
That's a lot of pressure. And I feel you on that because I think it's a really cool thing where there's so much promoted about activism and rallying for people to get out there and fight and, kind of beat your drums. And if that's your thing, like truly, if that's your thing, then beat your drum. And if it's not your thing, then that's okay. There are other ways to kind of broaden the scope on how we're defining activism and how we're defining helper. And so we can kind of get into that in a little bit. But I think just kind of the frustration in general, like even what I was saying a moment ago, which is like it can feel frustrating. I just want to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a normal feeling. We do just kind of instinctively want to take pain away. It can feel frustrating when we're not. So, and it's kind of something like when I'm working with clients, I can feel that myself sometimes in therapy sessions.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm trying to guide them through a perspective or, support them in the best way I can. And if it's not really tracking or going somewhere, I'm just like, what? Am I like robbing them of their money? So it's, it's normal. And at this point, I know how to let that go, but it's a normal feeling. But I would say just get curious about that when that's happening, when you're feeling that frustration. Now that's becoming about you, not about other people or circumstances. That's becoming about you. And so get curious about that. Like, where is that coming from? Like, when will it be enough? Why do you have to give more? That kind of stuff. And I would say to a lot of people, actually, to a lot of people who tend to be kind of helpers, again, people that I think might be watching this, this kind of sounds very specific, but I would just ask the question, if you are a helper in this way, if you overwhelmingly give of yourself and open your heart to support and nurture other people, if you're that person, who in your earliest life, like in your family that you've come from, who has had major mental health issues, who has had substance use issues, who has been maybe like someone in your family who just demanded so much attention and was kind of the center of the storm that everybody else had to spin around. Because when that happens and we're the ones spinning around somebody like that early in our lives, we come to learn that our value is in how we can take care of other people, that the reason why we belong is because we can care in such a ferocious way. And so when we're checking in on some of that and we can see maybe there is some of that stuff that's going on and we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to do that, then it gives us a moment to just kind of take a beat, chill, breathe, and surrender the need to have to do that, to perform in order to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy kind of what we put ourselves through sometimes. One thing I've been thinking about as we've been talking about this is like kind of checking in with yourself and asking, why do I feel the need to do this? Am I doing it because I feel like it's what's expected of me, or to impress someone,
yes,
or to just seem like I'm doing something? Or is it because I'm actually passionate about that action that I'm trying to take?
And you know what? It's a really fine line, and it's never going to be 100% one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to make sure that what's dominating, the kind of primary reason why we're doing what we're doing, is because we're inspired to do it, because we feel passionately about it, not because we think it's what other people need from us. And speaking from experience, there's a lot of times if I'm posting a video or anything on social media, I'm just kind of like, okay, am I really doing this because I'm passionate about this, or do I think people want this from me? So even
Yeah.
just taking a pause to ask yourself that can be really helpful.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna ask you kind of the flip side of this now.
Okay.
So, like, if I have people in my life who don't understand why I'm helping, or maybe there's someone in your life that doesn't really care as much about this whole COVID situation, like, how do I talk to them about, like, this is something I'm passionate about, and it is something that, like, I'm doing to help? Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh my God. Speak from it from a place of passion. Oh my God, I was so excited. You know, like I found out that this was going on and it's like sounds crazy. And I realized that I could, you know, contribute in this way or participate in this way. I'm starting this campaign, or these are the things I'm talking about on social media, whatever it is. Talk about it from passion. If you start preaching, that is the quickest way to shut everybody down. Like that's when you're really going to get blocked.
And
So
there's,
just,
like we said, there's so much of that already out there too on the like overwhelming people. But
yeah.
passion is something that you really can't turn your back on.
Listen, speak from passion, right? So it's like if the best thing that you can do, this is something that I've learned from Oprah, who's just like my mom. Love her. Anyway, I learned from her long ago that what the world needs right now more than anything is for people to get still and to check in and consider, what is it that sparks a light of joy within you so that you in your own way can illuminate the world?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want to do. What is it that inspires you? And then just do it and express it and share that passion with the world, but not in a way that's shaming other people to have to be on board or do the same things, because we're not all on the same page in that way.
Yeah.
So just model it, model passion, and then you'll inspire other people to light up also.
I love, and like another question I kind of wanted to touch on was like being satisfied or happy, even if you can only do a small thing.
Yes.
And I feel like that kind of speaks to it, because if you're passionate about it, then it's still a positive thing. Even if it seems small, it's probably not. But if it seems that way to you, then, you know, you have to find that kind of reassurance, I guess.
Yeah, totally, totally. There's a lot of experiences that we have in life that make us feel some shame, kind of like doubt ourselves. You know, am I enough? Am I doing enough? That kind of stuff. And in a way that makes it hard for us to listen to the whispers of our hearts. You know, to actually pay attention to what we care about and know that that stuff is valuable. There are so many times that I make videos like this, or doing stuff like this, and I'm just kind of like, does anybody really care? Like,
Yeah, are we talking to ourselves right now? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're talking to ourselves. Does anybody care? Is this actually helpful?
It's helping me, just by the way.
But for sure, 100%, always, if you're doing something that you are truly inspired by, you will inspire other people, and other people will get to light up also.
I love that. Okay, I think this is kind of going to be our last topic here.
Okay.
There's so many people that are just like afraid right now, and I'm going to jump ahead of what I know your advice is. It is okay to be afraid. It is valid. There are thousands and millions of people out there that are also afraid.
Yes, Hunter, normalize, Hunter.
I'm learning, y'all. Okay. But I think it's just like, yeah, how can I kind of deal with that fear? Because sometimes fear is not super logical.
Yeah. Fear
it's logical, but it's also not sometimes when it starts wrapping up in your head, you know?
And so I think that that's a really good distinction, because now you're talking about the difference between stress and anxiety, right? Which are inspired by fear. Stress is normal. We are in a stressful situation. You will feel stressed. That's normal. But the other part of it too is that all of this conversation, the way that we can think through things and tips that we can, take to manage some of this stuff is exactly that, to manage the stress so it doesn't spin into anxiety. So we want to keep, so the point is that you're going to feel stress and you're going to feel some fear. That's okay. I mean, I felt some fear going into this conversation today.
Oh, me too, girl.
Yeah, right. But it's normal, and we have to be willing to allow ourselves to feel that discomfort, because it is normal. And when we do that, that also helps us to not feel stressed. So I would say normalize that fear. It's going to be there. A couple quick tips I would say is also reframe your circumstance. This isn't happening to us. It's happening for us. We are not a victim of these circumstances. We can be a student of them if we allow it to be. So pay attention to what the lessons are. And for me, it's about really finding more balance, getting still, not having to overperform. So reframing it, however it is, that gives it a positive spin, that can be very helpful. So do that. You want to train your brain to focus on what is working as opposed to what's not. So just make sure that you're doing things like a gratitude journal or affirmations, things like that that actually help shape our default thinking to the abundance of our lives as opposed to the scarcity. Because when we start from that place, then we're on a solid foundation where we then can be able to tackle the other stuff from love as opposed to scrambling and grasping from fear, which is just not effective and again can also cause us to burn out.
Yes. Oh my God. I know we have to say goodbye to you soon, but I'm having like a breakthrough moment right now because
Yes.
I think for a lot of people, it's hard to admit that like I'm scared, but this can also be a learning experience at this, like both can be true at the same time. It doesn't
Yes.
you don't have to be all positive. You can be afraid and stressed, but you can also be learning.
Totally. Those things can happen at the same time. You can feel discomfort, fear, loneliness, hurt, anger, you can feel those and have positive thinking at the same time too. Thinking and feeling are separate. They can both happen. You can be positive and feel uncomfortable. Good distinction.
Oh my God. Yes, I really am learning. I wasn't even joking. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. You have definitely taught me a lot. I'm sure everyone watching is feeling the same way. You have been so amazing to just share your message and to do this with us.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And this was a lot of fun.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't wait to talk to you again. Like I said, guys, check out his whole Instagram after we're done with this. We're not done yet, but keep watching. But yeah, you give such great advice all the time. And we love you here at Jansport.
Oh, thanks, Hunter. Love you, Jansport.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. I'm going to say bye for now.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my goodness. This is so fun.
Did you just hear my like total epiphany moment I just had?
Yes. Well, so I was about to say, I'm fully convinced that I want Matthew to be my therapist now.
I know he's going to be in high demand. Okay.
I can't remember right now.
I just have to have a disclaimer here, introduce you a little bit. You are not a therapist. You want to tell us what you do and who you are?
Yeah.
For those who might not know.
Yeah. My name is Brandon Harvey. I'm the founder of Good. We are a media company focused on the good of the world. Actually, wait, hold on. Let me grab a little prop.
A little shameless promotion. We love that. Yes.
We make a newspaper filled with good news. And so
it's amazing.
This whole topic it's called the Good Newspaper. This whole topic feels so topical, honestly, because it's what that sounded so cheesy.
It's what we in the business call synergy, okay? Yes.
It's what I'm thinking about all the time. This idea of how do we consume news, and then our goal with the paper is how do we inspire people to take action, but we don't want people to get burnt out taking action either. And so as Matthew was talking, one thing I was going to say is when he was basically saying, this is my time to shine, like this is what I do, like that's exactly how I felt like as this whole situation began to unravel. I was like, oh, this is what we're here for. This is what we're made for. Like we've got to turn it on in like high energy, and I think we've been able to do that. But I've caught myself getting close to a sense of burnout in the process, and so I have been really trying hard to make sure I'm taking care of myself. And it's so funny because I wrote down before the conversation, I was like, my dream scenario, the thing that I want to be able to do is to choose my when and my how of like how I consume the news, making sure that I'm really intentional. And he laid it all out in the exact way that I would give the advice to others. But the reality is like, that's what I aspire to. It's not what I'm able to do every day.
It's hard.
It's really hard. Well, and
it's like kind of part of your job, right?
It's really hard with my job, but it's definitely something that I think it's still possible for anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of making some intentional choices. So I thought that was something that really stood out to me. Something else that I was thinking about too is this idea that. So I think that when we look at the news, we often think of it as like this binary idea of. There's news and it's overwhelming, so I either need to like limit it and cut it out of my life, either altogether or a little bit to feel better,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the two sides of the coin. It's all news or no news, or maybe you can find a little bit of in between to find a balance. But I would dare to say that there's at least for me, what I've experienced is there's another way of looking at it. There's this quote that drives everything we do at Good 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 from Mr. Rogers, who I love. And he said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.
Yes.
And so the way that I've started approaching the news is, it's not that I'm sitting there watching the news and I'm like, oh, I need to turn this off, or, oh, I need to like really absorb all this badness so that I can really feel it and know what's happening. What I'm trying to do is take Mr. Rogers' mom's advice and say, I'm going to look for the helpers. There's a helper in this news story, and they might not say it clearly. They might not have included that, but there's somebody in the world who's making a difference, and I'm going to find that person. And I'm going to let that be the final part of the story. The final part of the story shouldn't be, here's the problem. The final part of the story can be, here's the solution. And in the world we're living in today, actually, it's easier than ever. I think we've all seen stories of people showing up and making their own PPE, or volunteering to deliver groceries to people who need it. People who are showing up and creating things like this that offer a sense of hope and positive mental health. And so there's good news all around. And I've just been encouraging myself to say, okay, this is a bad news story, clearly, and I can acknowledge that as bad, but there is going to be somebody who shows up and they make a difference. And then the cool thing is, I can be the one to get involved and support that, or I can say, I want to get involved and also make a difference myself. And it's sometimes it's a much easier on-ramp when you see somebody else do it first. Then you can get involved and you can take action, and you can just join in with what they're doing. You don't have to come up with something new from scratch.
That's so true. Yeah, there are so many people out there already working on their passions, and we can support them. But I love what Matt said first about like, okay, we can have news and have boundaries with that, and then we can have other kinds of media or experiences that are more lighthearted, and we can find a balance there. But I like that you're kind of integrating the two together, as far as like, I can stay informed, but I can turn it into a positive experience. It might take a little more work. You might have to Google like, who's making these masks, like someone help, but at least you're like kind of combining the two, and we're making it a positive experience with everything that's going on in the world.
Totally. And also, like, you don't have to do all the research yourself. Find some resources that you trust. Follow some positive news accounts like ours on Instagram, or there's an amazing organization called Solutions Journalism where they teach journalists how to share solutions in their stories. And so go check them out. There's all kinds of cool things like that. But then also the other cool thing is, once you start thinking about it, you'll realize there's good news stories all around you. It's just that you don't really notice them as much. Yeah. And so once you start choosing to notice, you're like, oh, they're everywhere. And for me, I've actually been finding it really helpful. Matt talked about his gratitude journal. I've got like a good news notebook, and it's kind of like, I've never thought about this, but it's kind of Blue's Clues-esque, where it's like, here's my handy dandy notebook. And then I write down good news stories when I see them, because there's something kind of on a neurological, biological level that it won't absorb to your brain as easily as bad news. Yeah,
you have to like retrain your brain almost to look for it, to find it, and to hold on to it the way that we hold on to like other like stories that we hear. One last thing, like, I feel like I'm trying to find the words for this, but like, I feel like I don't have to be paying attention to every news story out there. You know what I mean? Like, or every like thread of news out. That was the word I said. Like, you don't have to pay attention to all the news happening in every corner of what's going on in the world. You can, if you, like Matt said, if you are passionate about something, or you're passionate about a problem or a community, you can just tune into that, I think, and do what you can with that information. And maybe like that's another boundary there, you know what I mean? Like, or you're almost choosing like, I'm going to focus more on good, or maybe someone else is choosing, I'm going to focus on this. And those are options. Like, I've honestly never thought of that before.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, I think that there's so many different topics that we can all care about. You know, you could really care about homelessness, or you could really care about LGBTQ issues, or you could really care about refugees. Like, there's so many different things, and we're all equipped to make a difference, but we don't all have to make every difference.
Yes.
And so choose your thing that you're going to care about. And, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of, like, you don't have to care about what your friend cares about. In fact, maybe it's best that you don't, because then you can divide and conquer, and you can each make a difference in your own way. But figure out what you're passionate about. And one thing I'll say is, over the course of my work, I've gotten to interview hundreds and hundreds of world changers and activists and all these people who really inspire me as somebody who, you know, I myself want to make a huge difference in the world. But none of these people started off by making a huge difference.
Okay, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. I know there's a little bit of technical difficulty, but I know you're still watching, and I had so much I wanted to talk to you about, but I think we can go ahead and we're going to talk to your friend and our friend, Deja Fox. If you're ready to talk, I would love to talk to you, and I'm going to find you right now in this Instagram feed. Hey, girl.
Hey, how's it going? I saw there's some technical difficulties. I was watching, and I was like,
I know. I know. He had so much good perspective to share, and I think we still got so much good stuff. Again, I know he's watching, so I feel like I'm still kind of talking to him.
Hey, Brandon.
Do you want to introduce, like, yourself and what you do?
Most definitely. So my name's Deja Fox. I'm recently turned 20 years old, so
Congrats.
just left the teen club. But I'm an activist, I'm an organizer, I'm an influencer, and a strategist. Most recently, I just finished up working digital strategy for a presidential campaign, which was really exciting. I'm a student at Columbia University. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm originally from Tucson, Arizona, but living on the East Coast now and doing that. I'm the founder of Gen Z Girl Gang, which is a digital community of young women and femmes who are really redefining the way that we practice sisterhood in the digital age. So that's me. That's a little bit about what I do, where I come from, who I am.
Girl, that's a lot. You were doing a lot out there. We love that. Do you want to give us, like, you were watching as well when Matthew was giving us all his expertise. What did you soak up out of that? What are your reactions?
No, I'm such a big note taker. I don't know if anyone else is, but I had, like, a notepad, and I was just, like, jotting things down. And first of all, the first thing that resonated right off the bat was talking about not consuming news first thing when you wake up. I'm
so bad at that.
Habits person. Yeah, no. And I work from home. You know, I'm also quarantining all by myself in an apartment. And so my morning routine is the same every day. I turn over and I write in my gratitude journal. And I was like, glad to see I'm on the right track, because he also is using a gratitude journal. But then I get up and I make my tea and I turn on the news, like a 13-minute little podcast. And then I sit down and I do a to-do list for my work day and stuff like this. But I'm starting to think maybe instead of that 13-minute podcast for the news in the morning, maybe I should switch that to something else, right? And maybe put the news in the middle of the day and just give myself some more variety in that way. And, you know, something else that really resonated was this idea of, like, what is it that we do at night and how does that translate into our dreams that really help us work through so many of our negative emotions and big problems that we're facing. And a new habit I've picked up during quarantine is actually reading, like, books that I would have never picked for myself otherwise to read before bed. I've started reading visionary fiction, which is where science fiction and social justice, like, meet to create these worlds. And so that's been really fun too. And I read it for no purpose other than imagination and good dreams and interesting thoughts. So
yes, I need to start doing all of that. It's crazy how you absorb the things that you expose yourself to over the day. Yeah. Was there anything else any other notes in there that we took?
Yeah. I think he also said something really important, and he talked about what it is to be sort of role model, right? In the sense that people are following you and watching what you're doing and how you talk about things and your own experiences. Matthew said something really important about modeling vulnerability. And I'm someone who leads a lot of communities, leads a lot of teams, whether it be my Instagram community, who's all here right now with us, or even my Gen Z Girl Gang team, which is a team of 10 young women across the country, you know, and then a larger community of 7,000. And how I show up as a leader for them, in large part, is also about how I model vulnerability and tell them, like, I made a mistake. I actually, you know, don't think that this was the best way to go about it, and I'm learning from that. Or even just like the way that I model vulnerability on my accounts, talking about my personal story and the way that that relates to my activism. Brandon also said something I really valued about the people who have created the biggest change that he's seen, you know, started small, and I started small. I grew my activism out of fighting for comprehensive sex education reform in my school district in Tucson, Arizona, right? And it was just me showing up to school board meetings and telling my story, and then had friends come along, right? And they would tell their stories. And over time, as we continued to keep showing up, more and more people came. And then we were able to really create this momentum, create this change.
And you've come so far now.
Yeah, and it's all for the power of like modeling this vulnerability and telling my own story, and opening up about details about my experiences with homelessness, and my experiences just generally with sex education, and being able to model that vulnerability for my friends and my community members. And I think it's really translated into the way that I now organize digitally on platforms like this.
Yeah, I love what you just said about like being a leader, because I think culturally we have this definition of leader as like someone that stands on top of the mountain and is never wrong and like puts a team on their back all the time. Yeah. And really, like, you can be a leader in other ways. You can model positive behavior. You can model everything you just talked about. And if you're like Matthew said, like if it's coming from a place of passion, people see that and they like kind of want to follow you and root for you, even if you're not always doing it quote unquote perfectly.
Absolutely. And I would rather be, you know, loudly imperfect than, you know, trying to be something that I'm not. And I think one of the really powerful things about being imperfect and being vulnerable and making mistakes publicly is that it allows other people to do the same, right? It allows space for other people to learn. And our generation, Gen Z, is the first generation to grow up with our entire lives broadcast, right? I got a Facebook when I was 11. So let's talk about it. I made a lot of mistakes publicly. And now I've had a big following. I went viral for the very first time when I was 16 years old. And so I've made a lot of mistakes. Loudly.
Yeah, you were like basically, you know, you're a young person. There's there are adults, full-grown adults out here making mistakes. Like, it is okay. Like, we put so much pressure on ourselves.
It is.
But one of the big things about this campaign is the power of sharing, I think. Yeah. Like what you just said, the power of sharing your experience, of what you're going through, of what you use to cope, is just like kind of the whole point. And we love that this has resonated for you, and hopefully will resonate with everyone that's tuning in. Were there any parting thoughts from the notes?
No, just I think my biggest thing that I want to share with everyone is that I know right now is really uncertain, right? I know that there's a lot of uncertainty, whether it's school or family life, or work. And I know I'm feeling that in my own life too. And so I just want to reach out to folks and say that, yes, times are really uncertain, but just remember that when we come out of this, the world is going to look different. And we really do have the power as young people to shape this new normal. We are the ones who understand social media and the digital landscape that we're all living in on this like different level. And so I hope that even though this is uncertain, people can also, and young people particularly, can step into this feeling of power that we really are the leaders we need in this moment to create a new normal that's not just a replication, right? It's not the same, but is actually better and more just and equitable. And so in that way, that's my that's my piece to all the young folks out there, that it's scary and uncertain, and I know that, but I hope that you step into your power, and I hope you join me in my communities, whether it's on my personal account at Deja Fox or my community at Gen Z Girl Gang.
Thank you so much for joining us. There's so many good messages and all of that. Guys, I think this is this week. We did it. This next week we'll be talking about dealing with uncertainty. It'll be a new topic, new questions, with a new therapist guest. And that's a wrap for this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.